Morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Policy Talks from Williamson, Inc., our local Chamber of Commerce here in Franklin, in Williamson County, I should say. And I'm Dave Crouch. Our guests this morning are Dr. Ken Moore, the mayor of the city of Franklin, along with Eric Stuckey, the city administrator. And we're looking forward this morning to having a good discussion about all the things going on behind the scenes in Franklin. Just want to thank our viewers on WCTV. We appreciate everyone joining us there on Comcast Channel 3 and the listeners on WAKM 950 radio. So, Mr. Mayor, I started to say you recently were reelected, but it's been almost a year now to another term. And
next month it'll be a year since I had an election. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Time flies when you're having.
It's been a different first year this term versus all the other terms, for sure.
I want to find someone that says they anticipated how our world would change if a pandemic came along, but a doctor should have anticipated that and been prepared. Did you see this coming?
No. Yeah, I kind of wonder how I would have felt pre-election if I'd known all this was going to happen. It's been a very challenging time for being an elected official, but also just for city operations and our staff and our citizens. But we're going to make it through. We have a lot of positive things, I think, that are happening as far as COVID-19 right now. We see a slight decrease every day recently as far as the number of active cases. We're down to about 350 range. We continue to see new cases, though, and the positive test rate is dropping very slightly, but about 7.5% of the people tested are testing positive. So we're not out of the woods. Even though Mayor Anderson lifted the mask mandate, I still see lots of businesses requiring masks to enter. I see lots of people using masks, and I still recommend using a mask when you can't physically distance. And also washing your hands and staying away from crowds.
Well, common sense, I think, would dictate a lot of those things, as well as just being careful about where you go. And I appreciate your trying to take care of us as our number one doctor in town. So we need that guidance. Now, how long have you been mayor now with this?
I stepped into the mayor role in January of 2011 when Mayor Schroer resigned to become commissioner of Tennessee Department of Transportation. So this is my third elected term as mayor, and I'm really blessed to be able to serve in that role and work with such a great city team. We have so many great employees and so smart. And of course, it's such an honor to work with Eric Stuckey, who is just such a great leader for the city team and does such a great job. And I'm just sorry he messed up today and wore a tie. Yeah, I sent him the message, that's his fault that I found is that he didn't get the message about his tie today.
We'll have to edit his picture here.
I'm just trying to dress to impress.
We always are impressed with you guys. One more question from the 30,000 foot level here to the mayor, though. Mr. Mayor, what motivates you to continue to be mayor? What is it when you're gone that you want to see Franklin different? How do you want to see it different than it might have been if you hadn't been mayor?
Well, I really enjoy public service. My career was medicine before I came to Franklin, and certainly that's service to people and taking care of people. And I had a lot of experience as far as policy, particularly health policy. So whenever the opportunity came to be involved here, it was kind of a natural transition. It's a lot like practicing medicine. You have to listen to people and hear their concerns and try to figure out how to fix what they're talking about. I had a little different opportunity when I was practicing orthopedic surgery, because we could put them to sleep and put a plate or do something like that. And so it's a little different, but I have a much larger team of support now with 700, almost 750 employees with the city of Franklin, and a brilliant staff that I get to work with every day. It's just so much fun to hear the challenges that we have, the challenges of growth, the challenges of continuing to be a very popular place to live, the challenges of keeping our services to the highest level, the challenge to continue to be a strong financial entity. And it's paying off, because we're recognized as an all-American city by the National Civic League, which was a partnership that we did with Franklin Tamara to seek that honor. And Money Magazine, third time in a row, we're in the top 10 of best places to live in America in our category. Then probably the one that means a lot to me is, we do a citizen survey every other year. And that survey, we compare our results to over 600 other cities that take the survey. And we were able to get 2 awards from that survey based on what we're doing, civic engagement. And Eric can refresh my memory what the other category was. Citizen feedback and education and enrichment, I think it was. So those are important awards, because those are ones that our citizens are helping us get.
Right. Eric Stuckey, longtime city administrator. How long have you been with us now, Eric?
I am in my 12th year, so it'll be 12 years at the end of 2020.
Okay, so you've got some seniority over the mayor then.
Just a little bit. Although he was part of who hired me, so he's been on the board longer than I've been here, but he's been mayor for just a little bit short of that.
Let me ask you the same question I asked the mayor. What motivates you to do your job? What is it you want to see done between now and the time you're no longer around?
Well, we have, as the mayor said, we have a great team. We have just a wonderful community. And, in our business, we get to build a place that people call home, that they build their lives, they build their businesses. And I don't think there's not a much more exciting line of work and that you can be involved in, because it has real impact in people's lives. And so we want to just keep building the best city that we can. And we want to be the best city in America. And we think we're making progress towards that every day. And we have a lot of great fundamentals that help us do that, some of which the city delivers directly, but so much of which is just what the community and businesses in our community bring to the table as well. So it is a partnership, it is a team, and I get a lot out of doing that. So I plan on doing that as long as they'll have me, because it is such a rewarding place to work. And I get to compare notes with my colleagues across the state and across the country. And I wouldn't trade it because of the work environment we have, the opportunities we have, and just the quality of life. You get to kind of live your work in this job, and I get a lot out of that, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity.
Well, it's a great town, and we appreciate the diligence that you all give to the job. And of course, we know the citizens will let you know if you don't. But
that's one of the great things about local government. There's not a lot of mystery. We get feedback pretty regularly, and we have the opportunity to respond to it quickly. I mean, other levels of government can't say that. And we're close to it, and we know when we're getting it right, and we know when we need to address it. And hopefully we're getting on the issues that we need to.
Now, the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever your choice of terms there, has changed our world this year. And I think everybody's heard about the ways it's changed our lives, but how has it affected the city as far as our finances? What are you dealing with there behind the scenes, Eric, Mr. Mayor, as far as financial impacts and how you're actually having to deal with real world issues there?
Well, we have been impacted, no doubt. We had to reduce our budget that we're operating under now about 10%. So that's about $18 million across our whole budget. And so that has been a challenge, but our team stepped up. We've not had to lay anybody off. And we've modified some of our services to enhance the protection and safety for our team members, but also the community at large. But we have seen the sales tax not be hit quite as bad as we had feared. So that's good. And, we are hopeful that we'll see continued improvement. We've been flat the last 2 months compared to a year ago, or close to flat, which is really pretty good and better than we had expected. So, that return of activity has been encouraging. We've moved a number of our operations, and staff members that can work remotely are doing that on a rotating basis, although we're keeping City Hall open and active and available to our citizens as well. And so we've really had to adapt, and we continue to adapt. And when we approved the budget at the beginning of the fiscal year, which was July 1, one thing we told everybody and told the board was, we're probably going to be revisiting this a couple times throughout the year, because this is going to evolve, and it may involve further cuts. It may involve some restoration. And we'll have those conversations as we get a better picture, because we had to make budget decisions when we really didn't have much of a complete financial picture, because we don't get sales tax revenues till a couple months after they're received. And so we were making best guesses. And of course we were conservative. We have a strong financial base. We're AAA rated by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's, and proud to maintain that. And we retain a pretty high level of financial reserves, because we are so dependent on sales tax that can drop off quickly as a revenue source. We do have that safeguard. So that helped us maintain stability in services and weather this, as it did with the recession back when I first got here in 08, 09, and 2010. So that's a overview, but we continue to look at it every day and take the measures, and we'll be making some modifications to our budget, hopefully making a couple efforts to restore a few things as we move into the latter parts of the year. At least that's the trend.
I think Eric made a good point when he came on board back in the 2008, 2009 era. We had to cut our budget then during the recession, and cut it without any layoffs or any loss of service. So we had some practice, but that's not the kind of practice you'd like to have. But I think that I would emphasize that small businesses have really taken a pretty significant hit in our community, and particularly our hotels and our restaurants have had huge challenges. And I encourage our citizens to support our local businesses right now. The majority of our businesses are not the Nissans and the Mars. The majority of them are small businesses. And so that's what gives us such a unique community, is all the small businesses. And so hope people will continue to support, and we need to continue to be a safe city for people to visit. Tourists spend $1.3 million a day in Franklin and Williamson County. We have so that saves each taxpayer about over $500. And so we want those tourists to return, because those are good dollars that we don't have to provide any services to, other than just trying to keep them safe. So that's why it's really important. We know from surveys that Ellie Chin tells us about that travelers are looking for a place that is creating a safe environment for them to come. And so that's why it continues to be important for us to do the right things as far as protecting each other from the coronavirus and the things I've already talked about: mask, hand washing, physical distancing.
What are you hearing about tourism and the numbers that we are now having, given the changes?
I can't quote you the exact numbers. Eric's much better on remembering those numbers, but I do know that we've seen some, our hotel occupancy is in the 40% range, and it is inching up a little bit. I did see where Nashville's is not going up quite like they would like, and I think we're a little bit ahead of them. But we lost a significant number of events and conventions and things like that because everything's been canceled.
Right.
So it's also an opportunity now for us to be a safe city for people to come to. And I know that the visitors team is working very hard to attract some of those entities, conventions to come back right now. So kind of an open opportunity for us.
Right. Do we, Confederate monuments have been a subject on a lot of people's minds recently, and Franklin's got several of those. If you consider the battlefield properties and Carter House and things like that. What's going on as far as the reception there? Are we seeing the numbers change as a result of these conversations, or what do you see long term for our historic properties like that?
Well, I think some of the work that has been done over the last couple years to acknowledge our Civil War history, it is our history, and tell that story, but also work to tell more elements of the story. There's been the Fuller Story Initiative that's happened over the last year that brings other history to the table as well, and especially as it relates to African Americans before, during, and after the Civil War. The U.S. Colored Troops Soldier statue is been funded by public fundraising, all private dollars and not city dollars in it, but individuals have reached into their own pockets to help fund that statue, which will likely be unveiled this coming June, on Juneteenth in June 2021. So, I think that story evolving and the initiative to restore and reclaim parts of the battlefield has always been about telling the American story of the Civil War. And that is not just a military history or a Confederate or a Union or Federal story. It is an American story. And it is not always a pleasant story. It was a harsh time, and it was difficult on our city, but our city grew from it, restored its community character from it, was part of our community character. And I think that is an important story to learn from. History can teach us so much, and it's not just what happened, it's what you do about what happened. And this community fought through some tough times, and all of our citizens are part of that story. And so I think that is part of what we can tell that's maybe a little different than some of the other communities, because we've kind of taken a different path, which is, it's not about win or lose or take down. It's about, let's tell more of it, and let's tell a more complete picture. And I think that will serve us well, just from a community standpoint, but also I think that is a more interesting story to visitors. And that I think can be more sustainable from that standpoint as well.
And we just didn't start telling this story after George Floyd's death. We've been telling this story for some time. When we commemorated the 150th year of the Battle of Franklin, we told a more complete story. And we've been having conversations for a long time among ourselves. Can we do much better? Oh, absolutely, we can do better on telling the stories. But I think we have some very rich history, and we need to continue to explore it in our community and share that with other people.
As I understand it, the All-American City Award, part of the reason for Franklin getting that award is because Franklin was proactive in addressing what we call the Fuller story. And am I right about, is that an accurate?
Yeah, there was kind of three key pillars, and that was one of the primary ones, was to talk about that initiative and how that brought more of it to the story. And I'll share just a quick snippet. My international professional conference is going on right now. It's happening virtually, and it's for international city county management. And actually, Lisa Clayton, our parks director, was in a breakout session, and they were talking about monuments, and somebody not from the city of Franklin, not involved in it, said, I want to tell you about a city that's really done a great job on this, and that's Franklin, Tennessee. And they went and told this great story about what the Fuller story is. And Lisa's sitting there going, we couldn't have said it better ourselves. And it's somebody else talking about you and how you've engaged and brought more history to the table and how that can benefit the community. So that made me really proud to hear that other people are talking about it, not just locally, as an example of how to address these issues in maybe a more constructive way.
Now, having said that, we still do have protesters, and you all dealt with that at the BOMA meeting the other night. Was it Tuesday night? And move forward an ordinance that kind of, I wouldn't say controls how protesting is done, but at least gives it a more framework to so that the city can address it maybe more appropriately. Tell us about that, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about ordinance 2019-19, which is public gathering expression at events. And this particular ordinance defines that groups of 20 or more should work with the city as far as defining where they want to have their protests. It sets out some rules as far as amplification. It sets out certain protections that we want to have to make sure that they can have their event. It also addresses counter protests, because many protests have other people that want to have the opposite. And so we want to have those groups separated. It does not really have anything to do with the message they're delivering. That's a freedom of speech issue. But we're just trying to define the area and make sure that they can do it safely. It can protect, that we're protecting our citizens, we're protecting our businesses downtown or wherever it may be, and also allow for those counter protests to have their counter protest in a safe fashion.
Eric, if this ordinance had been in place during the recent protests that have been going on, what would have been different? How would it have been different?
Actually, it wouldn't have been probably much different at all. This really just puts in written form or an ordinance form what we already do with 95% of the groups that have public expression events or demonstrations, whatever term you want to use. They contact us, they say, hey, we want to do something on the square this time, Friday at a certain time or whatever day at a certain time. What do we need to know? And we just collect information about who they are, how many people they expect, are they just, what area do they want to, what public space do they want to use? And then we work with them to organize it and to provide for their safety, the safety of the public, and anybody else who wants to participate. So in a lot of ways, it's putting down in writing what we already do. Mm-hmm. And we kind of went to school. This discussion started in the wake of what was experienced in Murfreesboro with the white supremacist rally a few years ago. We kind of learned from what they experienced, and they handled that very well. What were some of the things they did to help manage a larger scale event that was both driven by the protester and the counter protester alike? And so that started it. And then we've had some experience throughout the year. Our city attorney, Shauna Billingsley, did a wonderful job in researching all the case law around what you can and can't do. And we really see it as an effort that facilitates the exercise of First Amendment rights, your right to speak and your right to peaceably assemble. And so that's the way we look at it, as an avenue to protect it and provide for it and do it in a safe way. And it's not a mystery. You don't need to guess what you need to do or not do. You just come to us and we collect the information. And as the mayor said, it's never about the message. It's just about providing for safety and reserving the space, the public space to do it. If it's on private land, of course, that's a different topic, and that's up to that private landowner.
Right. Now let's talk about a really important event coming up. October 31st is Halloween, and it's always a fun time for families and for adults as well. But how do you see that going down this year? Are we going to have anything different as a result of the pandemic and all that's going on there?
Well, our general approach has been for neighborhoods to make those decisions about what they do, and individuals to make those decisions. I don't know that it'll be a lot different. The one area that does brings a large group of people together is on West Main, and we will see what those neighbors want to do. We do provide some additional just safety services in terms of our police providing for controlling that, so that there's not any risk for pedestrians and vehicle traffic. So we will really let that be driven by what neighborhoods choose to do. That's going to be an individual decision. That's how I believe we're approaching it.
Well, I would add to that there's some real increased risk for exposure to COVID-19. The more people you put together and the more contact that people have. So whatever the neighborhoods choose, I hope they'll also choose to encourage wearing of facial coverings and the other things that we do.
Duly noted, Mr. Mayor. Duly noted.
Have I said that this morning?
You said it before we went on the air. I think you've said it a time or two since we've been on the air. So in case you want to take a message away from this show this morning, wear your mask. I think that's it. Let's change the subject matter here just a little bit. And we always like to talk about projects that are going on in the city that are going to change the face of the city, that are going to make it more convenient for us to get around, things like that. There's one that they just declared finished, the Harpeth Square project in downtown Franklin. And very significant project as far as the face of downtown Franklin. What have we learned from that project? Is there anything we would have done differently? Are we happy with the way that turned out in general? What do you say, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think it's a wonderful project, and I've always said about that particular project, it's the start of redevelopment east of the square. If you think about it, most all of our activity occurs west of the square at this time. So the fact of $100+ million reinvestment in downtown is pretty amazing, and the fact that it's pretty much a whole block, those dollars are going to come back to us in many forms and fashion. But the commercial businesses that are there, the eateries that are there, the hotel rooms, the fact that we have more people living downtown to keep downtown vibrant and alive. You've seen some additional development with the on the old Dotson's property.
Right.
So I think this is great news. We helped some with that as far as some infrastructure help. and some streetscape elements. But basically that's private dollar investment in downtown versus things that we're doing like streets and roads and sewer plants and so on and so forth.
That is certainly a large change and a beautiful facility. And just curious to see if there was anything we would do differently. Now, Eric, the moving on up the road, Franklin Road is changing as we speak. And give us a progress report and what we should expect going on Franklin Road.
Yeah, we're excited to see that happen. It goes from the bridge all the way up just past the factory in Harlansdale, and it will put sidewalks on both sides. It'll make it a continuous 3-lane road with the streetscape elements in it as well. We're also upgrading pretty much all the infrastructure along the way in terms of water, sewer, storm sewer, electric utilities, gas lines. All of that's being updated and upgraded. And we're excited about it. We also are doing something a little different with this project. The board has given the city administrator, given me some authority to incentivize the timely completion of the project. So roughly, if they get that done in 18 months, they can get an additional financial bonus. And Civil Constructors was the successful low bidder, and they're pretty serious about trying to get that. That is something that we have identified with some of our projects that, boy, if we can get them moved along, that time is money for us too, in terms of the disruption to the community, the impact on local business and residents. And so we sort of came up with a new idea of getting that authority on a large project, and the board granted it, and we'll see if they deliver. We know they're pretty serious about it, but that will be an important project to bring that connectivity from downtown out to the park, out to the factory. Also connects into the network that goes out towards Cool Springs, down Liberty and all that. So we are making great progress in not only improving our roads, but also improving trail and sidewalk connectivity so that people can walk and bike and get to places, as well as improve the traffic flow.
Yeah, one of the big disappointments of my tenure as mayor is whenever they did a inventory on walkability, and we didn't score very well. And the board has stepped up and made a significant investment in sidewalk gaps, trails, and connectivity. And I think this is such a great example of an area of important connectivity up Franklin Road, because that was a very unsafe situation, just because there were no sidewalks and there were people that were going from downtown out to the factory area. So this is important safety improvement, and also this is going to be something that continues to help us be more connected. And while I'm talking about that, we have actually approved the bid for a 96 West sidewalk from Freedom Middle School all the way into downtown. And we worked with TDOT on a couple of grants. So again, that's going to create a significant connection to another part of our city.
Now, there was some discussion, I know, about that project around the ladies with the I'm not thinking of the word.
Market.
The open air market there. How did that turn out? What are we going to see there?
Yeah, we've actually been working with them, and our city team has stepped up and helped too. We've kind of reconfigured the site there so that the trail can come through. And our streets team actually built a kind of a pavilion type area for them to store material and to better use some of their site. So there'll be kind of a little circular drive in there where can be a little bit of parking and pickup of materials, and then still allow the trail to go through. And we'll be upgrading the building that's there. We're working with them on that as well. So the board granted a little bit of funding to help with that, about $50,000 authority they gave to staff to work with different solutions. We're well within those numbers, but to help accommodate that business, but also make sure the trail can go through in the way that will serve and work well. So I think it's going to be a great solution, and we see part of it in place now. After the busy season later this fall, we'll see the second part of that start to go in place too.
I know that a lot of the citizens of Franklin wanted to see that business protected. I know my wife visits there quite regularly. So
me too. I drive by it every day on the way home too. So I think we've come up with a good solution.
Speaking of sidewalks, what about Lewisburg Pike? What are we going to see out my way?
Well, we're doing some design work to take the sidewalk, actually, ultimately all the way to Mac Hatcher. What we have looked at this point is a sidewalk connection where it stops to pass the railroad tracks as a first segment. And then we're going to go ahead and do design work to take it all the way down to connect to the Mac Hatcher components. So that will be a future funding opportunity too, but we'll do that first segment. I don't have a timing on that quite yet because we're still finishing up some of the design work.
Keep me posted on that. I'd love to be able to ride my bicycle to downtown Franklin.
Well, we love to make those connections and connect to the Eastern Flank Park and all of those elements. So that is in the works.
Let's talk about Mac Hatcher. Lots going on out there on the northwest section. When's it going to be open? What's going to happen there?
Well, I think we expect about a year from now. Per contract, I think it's November of 2021. We're actually hearing they're a little bit ahead of schedule. So we're hopeful, let's just say next fall, that should be completed. And that'll include 2 lanes of traffic and a multi-use trail. And we'll connect from over by West Haven all the way up to Hillsborough Road. And will be a great improvement in terms of helping get people from where they live to where they work and shop and those elements, especially into Cool Springs as you continue on Mac Hatcher. So that's an exciting improvement. And it's been a partnership. The city put a significant investment in it. Southern Land helped us fund. Ultimately, we directed dollars they put in to help fund that multi-use trail. And of course, it's a huge state investment. It's about a $40 million plus investment. So we'll be thrilled to have that open. That has been the #1 capital project priority since well before I got here. It's probably the first project I heard about when I walked through the door.
Maybe the mayor can put that on the list of legacy items in his tenure then, and as well as you, Eric.
Well, and speaking of legacy, the bridge there will be named after the late Charles Sargent. So that's a nice touch as well. Charles was a key component in getting that project going and did a lot of great work in the community and at the state level.
I would urge your listeners to drive out Del Rio Pike and out 96 West and just kind of see what what's evolving. I mean, it's going to be wonderful. You know, the intersections are going to be magnificent. You can see the half-mile long bridge crossing the Harpeth River multiple times. It's going to be quite the feat, and I think it'll be a very popular walking area. You think about walking from Hillsborough Road to 96 West. I mean, to do that today would be a real struggle, but when this is finished, it's going to be a long walk, but it's going to be such an opportunity, and it's going to have some great visuals.
Well, Del Rio has always been one of the most scenic drives in our county, and but it hasn't been one of the most safe drives, or especially a walk or bike. This will connect a lot of those areas to our better infrastructure. Understand Brownland Farms is being discussed. I guess some of us always thought it was going to be a horse facility, but it looks like that's changing, and that's precipitating a discussion about a small area plan out that way. Tell us what's happening there, what you see happening in the future around
I
it.
think you're referring to Brownland Farm. Somebody has offered to buy it and develop housing in that area. But if you think as far as the way the crow flies, the next thing is we're talking about a lot of that rural property between 96 West and Hillsborough. And so the board the other night deferred any vote on this until the October 27th meeting so that we could look into developing a small area plan that affects all those properties. And when I say small area plan, what I'm talking about is the road network, number one. We have to get the road network on the map, otherwise it's not eligible for any reimbursement in our major thoroughfare plan. But also significant infrastructure like sewer. How do you serve that area? And also just how much density are we going to allow there? And I think that's one of the reasons we've heard some concerns from citizens is they're worried about the amount of density and the traffic and also the impact on our schools and so on and so forth. So we'll see how that continues to move forward, but it's kind of a tricky area to work because you have property owner rights as far as their ability to sell their property and have it developed. And then you have the concerns of the citizens and how that affects their way of life. So I think the board does a good job in navigating these areas and showing concern and trying to make sure that that we're fair to all parties concerned.
And I would just add, one of the secrets to Franklin's success has been good land use planning over time. That is what has brought us where we are. And we want to do that in this area as well. We just talked about Mac Hatcher. That's going to change the dynamic of some of this area, that connection. But as we started to hear some interest in annexation into the city in that area, we also heard, hey, we want to make sure we're protecting some of the rural character of the area as well. And so that's what the plan provides for us. We have Envision Franklin, which is our land use plan, which really has sort of a conservation approach to both where Brownland is and further out west along 96 West, which would also be included in this area. So I think what a small area plan will do is really build on that, be probably consistent with Envision Franklin, but refine it more, give more detail, and help create a broader kind of master view of what that area can be, and give property owners, the general public, and our elected leaders the chance to have a dialogue about it and say, well, what do we want it to be? What will work best for the community and everybody involved? And so that's what it's designed to do.
So are we or aren't we going to put a road across Gentry Farm?
There actually never was a plan to put too much of that, but we have come up with a modification. There was a line on a map to have a connection, and we have an alternative that totally avoids Gentry Farms. Yeah, there was some misinformation out there about, I think people thought that there was going to be massive development of Gentry Farm, and that has not been proposed, and I don't think that's coming at all. What we want to provide is a framework that helps preserve the character, and where we have to put an infrastructure, that we do it in a way that's sensitive to the environment that we want to protect. So that's why you do this kind of long-term thinking, and we don't want to piecemeal it. We want to have a broader vision, and that'll help us protect things like Gentry Farms and some of the other century farms that are out there.
Right. Dave, we should wash your mouth out with soap for just even saying that. But the board's been pretty vocal about no road goes through Gentry Farm. And so I think Eric makes a great point that we're looking how we can use alternative routes that protect the property and the environment and so on and so forth out in that direction.
Just got to stir things up occasionally, Mr. Mayor.
It wouldn't be a session with Dave if he didn't throw something like that out.
It wouldn't be fun if we didn't have something like that come up. So let's jump to the other side of town, though. Cool Springs, speaking of impact on the city of Franklin, Cool Springs has certainly been the big story for the last couple of decades. Any changes that we're seeing there? We don't have time to go over every development out there, but overall, do we expect to see the hotel or office building construction slow down? What are we hearing, seeing, and expecting there?
Well, actually, development and permitting continues to be really pretty vigorous. And we continue to see projects come forward for redevelopment. You see a lot of construction going on over in that area. So I think it's a very healthy area. You bring up the hotels, though, and as I mentioned earlier, they're struggling because a year ago they were 75+% occupied, and now they're 40% range. So that's significant impact on them. And like I say, we need to continue to make sure that we show that we are a safe environment for people to visit. We need to continue to encourage people to shop at the mall and all of our small businesses. So yeah, Cool Springs is alive and well.
I think part of what you'll see Cool Springs going forward is, and we see it on some projects that have come through recently, is you'll see some redevelopment of areas like the Primus site. There's a called Eastworks development, which will convert some of the parking into development area and make it more of a mixed use of live, work, retail, and other commercial space. And so that actually, I think will be, if you project forward in the next 10 to 20 years, I think you're going to see more of that. The land is so valuable that it doesn't maybe make sense for it to stay a parking lot. Plus people want to see and experience more mixed use together. And that actually can help with some of the traffic concerns and provides more variety of options in an area too, which can help in terms of changes in the economy or things like we were experiencing now. If you've got more diversity, a lot of times you'll come out better. So I think that's what you'll see going forward.
Right. Moving east on McEwen Drive, that project, I understand, is moving forward to connect the, 4-lane areas of McEwen over to Wilson Pike. What is our time frame there? And beyond that, what do you see as far as McEwen Drive continuing on east from there, and when might that happen?
Yeah, so we've got that, we call it McEwen 4. It's the extension from the Cool Springs roundabout all the way out to Wilson Pike. And it will make that 4-lane like you see in the segment going west. And that's probably about a year away from bid. It'll bid next summer. We have approved plans and we're doing right-of-way acquisition now. It will be a complicated project. You've got a lot to work with in terms of the roadway and the other topography out there. And then we've got an agreement with the city of Brentwood to do the segment east of Wilson and share in the cost of that part. And that will kind of tag on to when this next section of McEwen is completed. I would expect we would pretty much go right into that next phase, and Brentwood and Franklin are funding that jointly. So, McEwen is an important road. It is really the primary east-west connector across the county in a lot of ways. It is turned into that, and will continue to be that. And a lot of folks who come to work at Nissan or Mars that may live further east, that's going to be a main way for them to connect in and get to work. So that's an important roadway. And we were very fortunate. We've got about 18-19 million dollars of federal dollars that have helped us go into the McEwen project. And the downside to that is it takes a little longer because we have to go through some federal hoops in terms of approval and other elements. But when we can bring that kind of money to the table, that helps us move local dollars to fund another project other projects elsewhere in the community.
Now,
I think one point I might make about that is that we have a financial plan how we're funding projects. We look long-term how we can keep those projects moving and where our revenue source is going to come from to fund those projects. And like Eric said, we're getting significant federal dollars on that. But we've got a game plan for a lot of these projects we're talking about.
now, Williamson County does not have an airport. So a lot of the Franklin people that do have airplanes and that sort of thing either have to go to Lewisburg or to Smyrna. Is there any chance long-term that McEwen will ever connect with Sam Ridley Parkway and be able to get our folks that come over here from Rutherford County through that area a little more efficiently?
I know there have been some regional plannings on road alignment and how that could work. That obviously would be outside of our jurisdiction, but I know there is planning work that has gone on with that, and our staff team has worked with Brentwood and Smyrna and other folks that have worked on that, those connections. So I think that's been part of a longer term plan and probably would be regionally funded. That's really probably a TDOT driver as well.
And I have no idea the answer to this question, and that's always dangerous when you ask a question you don't even know the answer to. But what would be the chances of having the state take on a road like that and take on a new state highway in a situation like that needs to maybe need some assistance from the state level?
Yeah, and there have been some state dollars that went into the McEwen 3 component, the component that's there now. That really related more to the economic development piece and the Nissan development, honestly. So that's how it was justified. I can't tell you exactly that there is a process for that designation and how something becomes a state route. I think it deals with how the role it plays. And there's, I'm sure, lots of engineering standards that play into that in terms of the capacity and the connection to multiple communities and the regional benefit. But that would be a pretty big undertaking. We still try to get them as a partner wherever we can, and especially when we see those regional connections. And we work, and the mayor is a leader with the Metropolitan Planning Organization and how some dollars flow through that to help do especially these types of projects that have regional impact.
Yeah, our time's getting short, so I've got 2 or 3 other areas I want to hit real quickly. But the 96 East area, of course, the state is getting proceeding to 4 or 5 lane that all the way to Murfreesboro, as I understand. What about the sewer situation out that way? What will the development process be on out 96 West at this point? Mr. Mayor, let you jump in there and talk about the fund projects.
Well, we actually have explored that quite a bit. That particular basin is a very expensive basin to serve, and the landowners out in that area that wanted to develop looked at it, and we looked at it very carefully, trying to figure out the economics of it, and it just didn't work at that time. Mm-hmm. So someday it'll work, but right now it's just too expensive to get sewer to that, and to pass those costs along as far as land development, the dollar value was just too great.
Understood. What about Southeast Park? Eric, I know you've worked on that a lot. Tell us what that is, first of all, for those of us that don't specifically know all the details there.
So if you go along Carruthers Road, there's the undeveloped area between Carruthers and I-65. And so down around north of Ladd Park, River's Edge development is down there, that area. And the city many, many years ago purchased a big chunk of property there for the development of a future wastewater treatment plant. And we started re-examining that. There will be a plant there at some point in the future, but there's also lots of other land that can be used as a park. So we reimagined how that could be a park area. Plus, we were able to add the Robinson Lake parcel, which is adjoining it. So this will be really a great complex. It will be, if we added Pinkerton Park and Jim Warren and put them together, that's kind of what the Southeast Park would be like. You have a southern portion that is going to be more recreational athletic fields. And then you've got around the lake, which will be more of a passive area where you can just walk and enjoy and have a recreational experience there. We are ready to bid, and we'll bid this fall. The first segment of that, which would be really an infrastructure piece. We've got to build a bridge across the Harpeth to get to most of that land. And so we'll be bidding that component, and we have to relocate a large sewer line. So that work will get bid this fall, and that'll set the framework for developing the park. The other really exciting element of this park will be not only all the great athletic fields, but will be our first fully inclusive playground. And so that will be a great effort to bring all those services to children and adults of all abilities to provide some additional recreation experience that we don't really have in the community now. So it's really an exciting project. We don't have the park with an official name yet. We're working on that. We might have a name for the inclusive playground. Stay tuned on that. But there's some exciting developments happening with that. And it's great to see that move forward.
Mr. Mayor, circle back to downtown Franklin and the O'Moore property. We've seen some changes there over the past couple of years. I understand there's discussions going on as to how that property might evolve over the next few years. Give us an update there, if you will.
Well, we were excited that the Heritage Foundation was able to purchase that property from Belmont University. And if you look at the significance, that's a huge chunk of land right in downtown Franklin with two historic homes on it. Right now, they're working with our staff as far as what that plan is going to look like for that property. I know they're working to bring a Rosenwald school to that property also. I've heard it described as a mini Cheekwood. I know that there are plans for a significant meeting space there. So we continue to see that come forward, and what an important piece of property. We're not going to see a bunch of houses on it. We're going to see it maintained as a historic property with two historic homes. You know, there's going to be an entrepreneur center there that the chamber is going to run, and I think it's the Rainey House. I think that's the name. And then of course the Abbey Lee Mansion will be they have some vision for it, possibly as an art gallery. So just wonderful vision that they have, and they continue to work with the city to see what the opportunities are and how it can evolve.
Well, as long as it doesn't require another traffic light.
We're going to be very sensitive to you coming in the morning. We'll just clear the roads out for you, Dave.
Just don't put any more traffic lights between me and my home and my office. That's my personal request there. But this has been fun. I'm sure we missed some things that we could have talked about. Any big things? Well, we've got a minute left. We don't have time to talk about it.
Let me interject something very quickly. This is a very stressful time for everybody. We don't have those personal relationships, backslapping, hugging opportunities with our folks. And we're seeing an uptick in domestic violence. We're seeing an uptick as far as suicide. So there are two things I want to quickly say. Find Hope Franklin. Go to that website if you're having some emotional, mental health crisis issues. You can find the resources there. And secondly, my goal in the next few years is to get everybody trained in QPR. Everybody knows how to do CPR, but QPR is question, persuade, refer, recognize the signs of suicide and how to help people and know what to do.
just thank you for that. So impactful to a family when that escapes us and we miss someone that needs that help. So let's thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Mayor. Eric, thanks to our sponsors that help make this financially possible, AT&T and Vanderbilt, Creed Henderson and the WCTV team, Tom Lawrence and the WAKM, and then, as always, the chamber staff led by Matt Largen and helped by Kel McDowell, Nancy Conway, Griffin Wilcoxon. Just a great team. Appreciate our listeners. Thank you, and hope you'll be back the final Friday of October. Thank you very much.
Thank you.